Hey there, impzone podcast. We are back here talking more TNA wrestling shenanigans. And I just got done recording the Sacrifice review. About to say preview, but review there. And I did go through talking about the matches that they have announced for this show. There are still a couple of matches that they'll definitely be announcing and a couple of matches that they've teased for this show. For Rebellion, so yeah, but I wanted to make a separate video that is going more over the matches that have been announced rather than reviewing the show itself. So if people wanted to hear my thoughts about just these matches, that they could just tune into this and see what matches are upcoming for the next show, because again, I said this before, they're going to have to get their hop on, and I said that they're going to have to announce a few matches at least for the upcoming show. They have announced like 3-4 matches for the upcoming show, one for the upcoming TV, which is tomorrow as a taping. I believe that is going to has to be leading to something, so I'm actually going to talk about that match between Ariana Grace and Xia Brookside first, because I feel like, come on, this has to be going somewhere, and why wasn't this just announced for the pay-per-view? You might as well have announced it for the pay-per-view. That would have made more sense in some ways, but then again, maybe you're building to a stipulation. I don't know. But yeah, I do feel like this has got to be going somewhere. I still feel like you've got a bunch of challengers for Ariana Grace, so either way, I don't feel like Xia will win. Unfortunately, I think she's great, and I think she's awesome, and I think she is world champion material, absolutely. But I do feel like you've kind of pushed her into that mid-card scene, and now you're kind of like, oh, okay, well, we need something else. We need another match, and we're trying to tell other stories later down the track or whatever else it is. So I feel like this probably is probably mostly a one and done between these two coming. Well, I say one and done, but I mean when it gets to Rebellion, or at least if it gets to Rebellion. So that's at least what I'm thinking. I'm at least thinking that this is getting to Rebellion. Either way, I feel like Ariana is somehow, some way, again, finding a way to win or whatever. I'm not 100% sure. I feel like, again, like down the road more so, maybe at Slammiversary, that's when this is going to change. Maybe Bound for Glory, I don't know. That's a really long time to hold that belt in some ways. But then again, it's like, what would you do if you're gonna have something big at Slammiversary and then you're gonna have something big 3 months later after somebody's won the belt? Like, you know what I mean? It does feel like, hey, like a little bit of a, like, I don't know. Something else has to be there to kind of inform you of saying, well, this isn't the end. We did still do a big thing and it was historic or whatever. But, like, then you've got to turn around at Bound for Glory in only a couple of months and have something epic, you know what I mean? So it's like, well, it is a little bit of a troublesome thing sometimes of like, you want something big at Slammiversary, but you also got to have something big at Bound for Glory, and it feels a lot bigger when somebody wins the belt at Bound for Glory. And I said before, maybe you could actually do the same thing with the women. I said this for the men, but you could do a version of it for the women. You could have the Bound for Glory series, but for the women. Like, let's do that. Like, that's another way to get there, I think, that could be utilized. And people have wanted to see that come back. Maybe it will, maybe it won't. We'll have to wait and see. But yeah, I can't see that this match will be just like one and done on TV, or at least it has to lead to something. I feel like, yeah, you're gonna have another match between these two. It's gonna be a stipulation of some sort. I don't know what, but yeah, it has to be something. Either which way, let's move on to the matches that are officially announced for the upcoming show. I'm going to talk about the tag team match first because this is the match that I feel more confident, or well, I guess the most confident on. The next match is fairly confident as well. The Hardys versus Bear Bronson and Brian Myers. Like, I said this before in the other in the show review, so if you haven't really listened to that, and I know this is a separate video and whatnot, because it's like I wanted this to be more of a preview of the upcoming show rather than being a review of the show. But like, yeah, if you haven't seen what happened or what went down or heard about what went down, I suggest maybe going and listening to that, or at least finding out what went down. But I will say what went down here anyway, so I hope that you're aware of what's going down. I don't want to spoil anyone to what happened, but I do feel like now that the Righteous have turned heel, that is the direction that you're going. You're not going in the direction of the Hardys versus the System. I said maybe you could have the System beat the Hardys, but I said, like, the System have already kind of beaten the Hardys. Yes, I know it's a new system, yada, 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 all this other stuff. And maybe they could, but I just don't see it. I don't see the point in that. And I said before, like maybe you're building to this being like the Hardys can't actually like do it and have to vacate, but then it's like, I don't know. It does feel a little bit weird because again, you're sort of like, how do you resolve this type thing? And you've got two heel teams mainly that are vying over the titles. And I mean, you've got to have heel teams for the babyface team, but like, there's not that many great babyface teams. I didn't really go into enough detail there about that in the review there, but you've got BDE and Swan, you've got Sinner and Saint, and I think that's just about it, realistically, at least on the men's side, and at least in the babyface like side of things for the most part, because you've got the Nemeth, you've got got the good hands or the great hands or whatever you want to call them, but they don't even wrestle all that much. So yeah, I don't know, but still, I feel like the main thing here that you're trying to get over is, the Righteous versus the Hardys. That's where you're trying to get to. So the System, if the System win the titles, it doesn't feel as complete. Yes, you could just have them feud without the belts or whatever else it is, but then how are the Righteous winning them? And then all of that other stuff. I feel like it's a much better story if the Righteous somehow win those titles at some point, and then the Hardys are coming back for revenge and yada, 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 and all that other stuff. So I just feel like it's a cleaner story, and I would rather see that cleaner story. And like, I'm like, with a lot of the other stuff that's going on, there's so much messiness around the place that it's like having a clean story that goes from one team to another team or whatever would be a lot better. And I would feel like, oh man, this does seem a lot better, rather than being like, oh, we're going to put it on the System, or we're going to vacate the belts. You should never vacate the belts if you can ever avoid vacating belts, because it's just a bad moment to kind of be in there. And as soon as you do vacate the belts or think about vacating the belts, it's like, well, we've basically got to crown champions as quickly as possible. And the best champions to crown are the Righteous, because again, that's where your main story of antagonism is right now, at least for the main baby faces. And I don't agree with the Hardys being the main baby faces, but for right now they are, or whatever. And I did say, like, it would be better if the Hardys weren't the champions right now and they were chasing the belts. But they've kind of, like, once you lose the belts and lose your rematch or whatever, you've kind of got to have another program to kind of go into. So this could give them that. But then it's like, yeah, but you want the Righteous to have those belts. You know what I mean? So, I don't know. And I said before, maybe you're building to a ladder match or something else at some point. But yeah, I really don't know what you're kind of going to do there and how you're going to kind of do it. I am excited to see it, but yeah, I do feel like, and as I said, like this tag team, yes, they've won a match or a few matches here or there, whatever it is, but they haven't been built up enough to be like, and they haven't got a great enough story for me to believe that these guys are going to win. Yes, they could win. The Righteous could cost them the titles or whatever else it is or whatnot, that sort of thing, but, or their attack could cost them the titles, whatever. But yeah, I don't see it. And I also don't 100% agree with you turning the Righteous heel. I don't think that that was the best move. I think, and I didn't go into this detail either in that review, but I felt like, as I said, you don't have that many great other babyface teams. So maybe this was a misstep and you should have kept it kind of going the way it kind of was. I don't know. But yeah, we'll have to wait and see what happens here. Cedric versus Leon Slater for the X Division title. I really don't think Cedric's been built up enough to conceivably win for me, at least yet. He hasn't got enough big wins under his belt to make me feel like he's gonna do it. But the problem is, it's like Leon's battled basically everyone in this X Division that's there right now. And there's not honestly that many people. But again, he's battled just about everyone in that division. And it's like he's pretty much done everything he can do with that title. So it's like time to do something else with him. I said before, maybe you could call in option C. I don't know. But again, I feel like if you vacate the title or whatever, that sort of thing, that it becomes like a big problem in many ways. So I just don't see him doing that right now, especially since the division is pretty thin and lackluster at the moment. So I guess you could, I said this before, I feel like the women should have another secondary title, and maybe they could borrow this title for a while. That'd be an interesting thing. Do something else, like, and I said maybe they should have their own X Division title, but they could just win this one. It's about no limits, so why can't a woman hold it? Let's do something different and go in that direction for a while. And then, we'll figure it out from there or something. I don't know. Maybe it'll become a women's title. I don't know. Or maybe you'll get a women's variant of the title. I don't know. But yeah, I do feel like I just don't believe that Cedric will win. Even though there's no one really else in this division, and it would make more sense to put it on him in some ways and start saying, okay, what else can we do, or who else can we build, or where else can we go? It's sort of like, well, I don't know. Like, at a certain point, yes, that would be great or whatever, but like also you just you haven't built up to it enough and made it feel like this, not that it's inevitable 100%, but it has to feel like, oh, yeah, he's a danger. He's beaten this person and that person and yada, yada, yada. It doesn't feel like that. At least Eric Young, felt like a little bit dangerous and felt like, oh, he'd hurt Slater or he'd done this or he'd done that, even though he'd been taking other side steps and whatnot after that. And he kind of was like fine after that. It was like, oh, yeah, it was more about confidence. Bitch, please. Like, it should have been more about like, he actually hurt me, man. Like, not that he bruised my pride or whatever. He actually hurt me and I couldn't really work after that. But now I'm going to get my revenge. Even so, it was still, everything there was still really good. Frankie Kazarian versus Elijah. Really don't have much here for this because I feel like this is a short-term or fairly short-term thing. Maybe they'll have another match down the road. I could see Kazarian winning. I could see Elijah winning. Doesn't really matter who wins. I feel like maybe Kazarian will win to set up another rematch, some sort of plunder match, some sort of hardcore match, something down the road. But whatever. I don't think it really matters. It's fine. And the main match thus far that has been announced for this show, which will be an absolute banger, is Trey Miguel versus Mustafa Ali. I didn't really go into thinking like who was gonna win in this one that much with this, but like, here's the thing. Trey has just won this belt. And the thing is, I said this as well, like, this belt is the second most useless belt in the company, pretty much, right now. So, and it's so unnecessary, and it's so hard to find, like, the right way to book this division. I think that you should drop it and do something else. And I said this for the X Division title, but give it to the women. Like, they would do better to have another singles title in their division, because at least that would be 3 and 3 each. There'd be another prize for other people to kind of go for that aren't tag team wrestlers, but aren't quite in the main event scene or have reached that main event scene, and you could give it to people to build them up a little bit more, rather than just like, yes, and I get like stories and things like that can do that, and like sometimes it does feel like a stopgap kind of thing, but it's also an experimental place of saying, hey, we don't know if this person's quite there yet, or the audience is quite behind them yet, or whatever else it is. But still, it does feel like that could work in some regards. Maybe it would work better, maybe it wouldn't. But then I keep thinking about like how you work out divisions. And the thing about the international title is it doesn't really represent a division all that much. It's just generic mid-card belt. You know what I mean? The tag team titles are at least a specific division. If you say this is the women's X division title, at least like there is that idea that this is its own separate division. It is more of a philosophy, it is more of a style, it is more of a preference or whatever than it is a, you know, I don't want to say cruiserweight title, but it is that thing where it's like, this is the separate title. This is meant to be the no limits title or whatever else it is, you know. So it would work for the women very well, honestly, in that regard. But again, you're kind of like, I don't know. It certainly works well for the men's division as well, but this one, nah, it kind of doesn't. Like the digital media title, that was an interesting idea, and I think it was actually kind of could have had some legs, and they could have done some great stuff with it, but they never really did enough with it, and they never like made it where it was like, this is important. And they haven't done that with the international title either yet. Like, they've done some stuff with it, but it's just, it needs its own specific things. That's why the Grand Championship kind of worked. It wasn't the best, but at least it kind of worked, because at least it had its own set of like rules, and it felt like its own division, and it felt like its own thing. It didn't feel like so forced to be this mid-card title that no one really needed, you know, sort of thing. Like, I don't know. It's just another, like, again, like, this is the epitome of a stopgap kind of title right now, and you're trying to make it feel important. And I get that, but again, it's like, you've got another title right there in the X Division title, so make that feel more important. You know what I mean? Have these guys going for that, or have more people, you know, challenging for the world title, or trying to challenge for the world title, instead of challenging for this other belt that, you know, again, like if it had the lineage and the history of some of the other titles that have been in TNA's history that have become defunct, you know, maybe then it might have a chance. But even then, it's like a lot of titles in this mid-card kind of scene have been around, and they have all faded away for one reason or another, you know, and I just don't think this title will be any different. I cannot believe that this title, you know, will be worth anything. So in the end, why would I care who wins this thing? You know what I mean? And that's tough. That's the tough thing about like a new title and all of this sort of stuff. You know, initially it was like pretty prestigious in some ways, because again, like, you didn't have a world champion for a little while, or you kind of didn't have a world champion for a little while. So having this extra belt felt like, and again, maybe that was the time to make it really mean something and really feel like this is our interim world championship kind of thing, almost, in some regards. Like, that's what we're doing with this. This is, like, at this point, though, now, it's just like, oh, yeah, we don't know really what we're trying to do with this thing. It was kind of our, de facto world championship, since, like, Trick Williams was holding the belt hostage for so long or whatever, and all of that. But, like, now it's just like, it doesn't have an identity like the X Division title does. You know what I mean? And it doesn't have anything special about it. So it's like, why would anyone care? Or why would, why should we care? And that's the problem. It will take way too long for people to actually conglomerate and care about this thing that you've created, and you're trying your best. I get that, but it's just like, you should have thought this through and realized, yeah, it's not going to work. Like, we might as well hang this belt up once the angle with Trick Williams is gone, or once that's done, or whatever. And I said before, like, maybe Macklin should have got a shot against Trick Williams, and then Trick Williams should have held both the belts or something like that. I don't know. So, yeah, I don't know whether that was the smartest idea either, but still, like, I feel like that could have been something that you did. And at least then it would have been, like, making that title feel more, like, important and impressive, and then maybe even Santana's win more important and more impressive, and then more of, like, Macklin feeling like, oh man, you took my title from me, kind of thing, or whatever, that I was holding, type thing. I don't know. But yeah. This will be absolutely a great match, I'm sure, but I just can't believe in some ways that Trey will lose, because again, he's just won this damn thing. I don't want them to, like, even though this belt doesn't mean a whole lot right now, they could make it mean something if they keep trying with it eventually. But that's the thing. You've got to keep working at it, and it'll take a long, long, long time of it being there and being a prominent title for people to actually take it somewhat seriously. So I could see as well, this doesn't have a stipulation, and I could just feel like, is this the end of this thing? I don't know. So, but then if you're saying, if this thing doesn't end here type thing with this match, then Ali's won the belt, like, surely. You know what I mean? So I don't know. Yeah, this one has me scratching my head the most, so to speak, because I could see that you might put it on Ali just to kind of give him something to work with for a little while, but that sort of sucks, and that's why I'm not so interested in this title or this sort of thing, because it's like, again, you're putting this stopgap in front of people just to be like, yeah, we can't have them in the main event. Why not? Exactly. You know what I mean? You should just be saying, this is a semi-main event feud of some sort, where, Trey is trying to prove himself and Ali is trying to get back in the title picture. You know what I mean? So, yeah. And then, going from there. So, but yeah, like, yeah, I just can't put my finger on yet who's winning. So I can't decide, guys. So, but that is it for this card for now. Obviously, next week we will have some updates on the card. I'm pretty sure they'll announce the main event. At least I hope they'll announce the main event. And what else matches on here? I'm pretty sure that I said this match between the Elegance brand and the TNA Legends, effectively. So, yeah, okay, that's cool. I feel like that's when Ash by Elegance is coming back. And I said, like, maybe Ash and Mickey are going to face off at Rebellion, but obviously that's not happening. Maybe that's happening at Slammiversary, like maybe, or Bound for Glory, maybe. Like that's a long way to try to stretch this feud out if that's what you're gonna do. I would say Slammiversary would work bit better in that regard because it's like you don't want this thing to drag on for too long or whatever, and you want people to feel like, okay, we're going to move on from that. That was a great program or whatever. We're not just going to, drag this out and drag this out and drag this out or whatever else it is. No, here it is, here it comes, whatever. What are some other? Oh, I guess I don't know. I'm guessing that's for the Knockouts tag team titles. I'm like, probably not actually. That doesn't make any sense because it's like a trios match and there's a man involved. Whatever. I don't know. The main event's very shaky to me because both Nick Nemeth and like Eddie have said, hey, I'm calling my shot. Hey, I'm calling my shot. So like that does feel like triple threat time, like, but then it's like, who wins? You know what I mean? Who wins? I honestly don't want Eddie to win, nor do I want Nemeth to win. So I said, I kind of want this feud with Macklin to continue. So I feel like maybe somehow, some way, Eddie will pull through. Maybe. I don't know. That's where I'm thinking. Because I was thinking, if you're going to have this thing happen, even though this is a more major show, I think what you're trying to build towards is a bigger match between Eddie. Oh, I'm about to say Eddie. Is between Macklin and Santana. So is that going to be at Bound for Glory or Slammiversary? That's the question there that I have to pitch. And I don't know what other matches that you could have between now and then. You know what I mean? So there's not that many bigger other matches right now, at least. So, like, at least at this point, I feel like, yeah, you're going to be saying, okay, like, yeah, whatever. Though Eddie said, hey, it's going to be the Systems night. So I said, like, I could see you putting the belt maybe on Cedric. I could see you maybe putting the belt on the System, maybe. But not that makes 100% sense. You know what I mean? And at a certain point, if you're going to do that, like, especially with those two titles, then you've got to be saying, the baby faces are going to win some of the other big matches. You've kind of, like, it's sort of like this 50-50 booking sort of thing, or whatever you want to call it, where it's like the baby faces can't win too many matches, nor can the heels, because like you can tell this story where the heels are winning, all the heels are winning, but then at the end the baby face finally wins and the crowd goes home happy because the baby face, it started to feel like more against the odds because you had that night of all the heels winning. So, and in that regard, you might think, oh, well, then Eddie's winning. Like, maybe, but, like, again, I don't know. I just don't feel like it. I feel like, and the same thing, as I said, with, like, the Righteous and the Hardys. I don't feel like he's the ultimate villain at this point. In some regards, I feel like Macklin still is the big threat to an extent. And that's where you want to be, I think. People still want to see that. So trying to deliver it to them at a certain point down the road is like, okay, that's what we're doing. That's where we're going. It is what it is. Whatever. I said before, you could do like a sort of Bound for Glory series like you've done in the past for the title. I don't know. That could be interesting. There are so many things that you could obviously do, but yeah, I don't know. But those, for now, at least, are my thoughts on this upcoming show. I think I'll get a little bit more certain about like where some of these things are going in the next couple of weeks, so I might mention them or I might put them out there somewhere. I usually do that. Usually do my predictions and whatnot for these shows on Twitter and that. So yeah, but anyway, guys, that is pretty much it for this one. I hope you're all going to be good to one another, and I hope you've enjoyed, and hope that you'll join me again in another one.